guilt is a very productive emotion, right? A lot of people we've heard like, I'm not doing this the way it should be, or some people say it's like, I'm not doing this program the way it should be. It makes me feel guilty. That guilt is a productive emotion. It lets you know that you're not in alignment with your values, what you want. Right. And the real choice in that moment or time isn't to go with the choice that's going to remove the guilt, just like remove the whole thing together. It's lean into it. Like, all right, how can I make this part work for me? And I think if there's trepidation, if there's guilt, if there's teetering, again, use that as a compass of sorts.
Yeah. And not as, a crown of shame. Guilt is, like you said, it's productive if we choose to see it that way. And I think that's another place people get hung up. Well, I feel guilty, so I'm feeling shame about this. Don't. It just, like you said, is an indicator we're out of alignment with where we want to go. So what can we do to bring ourselves closer to that? Just want to give a little quick update. I've had a few of you ask, and I really appreciate it. First of all, the dog is fine. Second of all, I swear my hamster has 9 lives. This hamster has survived multiple cat attacks. Yes, she escapes, and the cat gets her. She survived. And this broken leg issue, I guess her leg is not broken. I don't know. For a couple of days, she kind of ran around, was fine. She's back at it. She's an incredible hamster.
That's awesome.
And my son got a very kind apology note from his friend. All is well there. Wow. So
love a good apology note. That's very nice.
I know. I was surprised. It was very sincere too. Okay. So today the topic that is top of mind for me is, I guess what we distilled it down to was actually being decisive, right?
Yes.
And I think I just want to imprint this visual of the roundabout, right? Everybody's been on a roundabout. If you haven't been on a roundabout, go find one and get in your car and try it out. If you live in Great Britain, it's just a way of life. They're becoming common in New York. I don't know about you, Adam. What about where you live? Do you have roundabouts?
Not really, but in New Jersey, where my wife is from, they have a lot of roundabouts. So I've been on a bunch.
Yeah, you have to have decisions made before you get in the roundabout.
Yes.
Or you are going to be squashed.
You're just driving around in circles.
You're just like, all right, I'll figure it out eventually, right? But I think it's a great visual for what we're talking about today. And that's this idea that, well, first of all, a couple of my clients recently have really said to me, look, I don't know what to do. I don't know what decision is the right decision. And they go and they gather more information, and then they really don't know what the right decision is. And it's this information overload. And we say this all the time, right? Like, what we don't need is more information. We have to actually learn to make decisions. I really think that's where it is. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, what kind of decisions are we talking about here?
All right. Well, I mean, when it comes to my clients is, do I eat carbs or don't I eat carbs? Is sugar bad? Is sugar good? It's these black and white decisions, right? Should I be doing strength? Should I be doing steady state cardio? Is HIIT bad? Is HIIT good? What about my stress levels? 7 hours, 8 hours of sleep. And it's enough to make you crazy, right? So I think it's this idea that there is a black and white to our health choices, actually. Does that answer the question?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so let me then backtrack a minute here, and I'm going to go a little bit off in this direction.
You're gonna go the first right off the roundabout?
Yeah, I'm taking the first exit. And that is this brief story. I overheard my daughter, she's 11, and her friend chit-chatting this weekend in the car about this paper that they have to write. It's an argument paper. And it's, are you for plastic water bottles or are you against plastic water bottles, right? Are they good or are they bad? And tell me why. So her friend was talking about microplastics, which of course there's a lot of hubbub and information out there. And she was like, yes, microplastics, even if you drink water out of a plastic water bottle you buy at the grocery store. There's microplastics going into you. And if you put it under a microscope, and I saw it, and there's all these things in the water. And my daughter was just like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. And they pull it up really quick on the phone and they're like, ew, what's that? I can't believe I just drank out of a plastic water bottle yesterday. And I said, well, girls, well, wait a minute. Yes, it's definitely eye-opening to think about microplastics. But think about people who don't have access to clean water, and what a gift plastic water bottles are, because they can carry this fresh, clean water to these people in need. I mean, so we can't look at it as so cut and dry, black and white.
Right.
It's not all bad and all good. And so where I'm going with this is, what I realize, this impetus in us to assume there is a right or wrong, a black or white, a cut and dry, is actually this childlike part of us, right? That loves to see the world through these simple lenses. And I think that's going to be kind of our route into that self-compassion piece that we talk about so much. What do you think about that, Adam?
Yeah, I think black or white thinking, I think it's I think naturally we like to conserve energy, and it's, even just with people, right? It's easy to say, this person's good, this person's bad, right? This person is this person is that. And, for the most part, people, there's good things people do, and there's maybe not so good things people do, but it doesn't have to be black or white. And I think understanding that, because I think what happens is you start to play Spotto, right? Let's just say you have this person in your life, you're like, this person is X. And, when you play Spotto, you're only looking for X, right? You're ignoring everything else. It could be with your significant other, it could be with a friend, it could be with a frenemy, whatever it might be. But when you start to play Spotto, you're only noticing X, right? And you're ignoring all the other good things, or all the other things. So it's important to understand that you're doing it, and to give yourself the compassion to say, hey, maybe there's other parts of this that we're not seeing, or, other qualities we're not seeing.
Yeah. And I like the point that you make, that it actually is like an energy conservation, right? Because it is kind of exhausting to think about all the complexities there are in life. Mm-hmm. But I think the opportunity is, now we're adults and we understand that life is complicated. Yeah. There are many complex layers to everything. And when we think about decision making, something I say to my clients a lot, and listen, out there, if you're listening, you're going to bristle at this. There's going to be resistance to this idea. But there is no wrong decision, in my view, except indecision, right? Think about being stuck on the roundabout. This is not okay. This produces anxiety. Yes. This produces despair. And at some point, you're going to give out, right? So I contend there is no wrong decision, right? It's just the indecision that is wrong. The indecision is where we get stuck and we stay static. So I really think that kind of shifting into, and again, this is maybe going to come off a little preachy, and I hope it doesn't, but we're adults, right? And making decisions is actually energy giving, right? So we want to grow up our perspective, understand there is a complex way to achieve almost anything in life. And the goal is to just choose, get off the fence, make a decision, because there's not a wrong one out there, right? Adam? I
think that's well said and very counterintuitive, because I think a lot of people think making a decision is energy taxing. But the reality is, as you said, teetering, going back and forth, thinking, should I do this, should I not do this, is exhausting. It's exhausting. And when you actually make a decision and realize, you know what, is this reversible? Is this irreversible? Most decisions are reversible, and you just move forward. It does bring energy, because you can just move forward and put that, that decision, that loop in your head to sleep.
Yes. And it is energy giving. I mean, it is a prompt, right? It's propelling, right? It's actually taking a step forward. And we know that when we spend energy, we actually create energy. There's another little counterintuitive tip for you out there if you're sitting around a lot. We're like basil, get up.
It's true. Bodies in motion stay in motion. Bodies at rest stay at rest.
That's right. So anyway, back to it. So the other thing I want to say, and then we're going to really kind of delineate and identify the steps to be becoming decisive. All right. But the first thing I want to say is, by the way, you can't mess this up. And I tell my kids this all the time. And I tell my clients this all the time. Let's try something. Let's make a decision. We can always change our mind. And I know it feels like some decisions are irreversible. And I don't know, maybe packing up your house and moving to Europe. It's a pretty big decision, and it would take a lot to reverse it. But again, you can always change your mind. You got one life to live. Remember that. You can always change your mind. So then the little disclaimer is, you also can't mess this up, especially with what we're doing, Adam. I don't see how, saying for like the next couple of weeks, I'm going to try 10 minutes of yoga every morning is going to mess anything up.
Right.
Or I'm going to try and skip my afternoon, cookie snack.
Right. I mean, there's big decisions. And then, we recently talked about, the discomfort scale, of like, or the hard scale, like 0 or 1 being going for a stroll, and 100 running a marathon. Right. So like, in the grand scheme of decision making, I think the decisions we're talking about are pretty low on that scale.
They are. But notice it's easy to get hung up in the roundabout on those decisions, though.
Totally.
Do I, don't I? Do I, don't I?
Yep.
Just make a decision.
Right.
And give it a little time frame, right? I think that's helpful. So remember, you can't mess this up. You can't mess this up. Okay. Just want to make sure everybody heard that.
No, it's worth yes. Anything worth saying once is worth saying again.
Yeah. I say it a lot.
I'm writing a few notes so I don't forget, because I have a few things.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, do you want to say your few things first, and then we'll go into our, here's how we do this?
Well, my things are about, ways to make, kind of frameworks that can help you make the decision and move forward.
Okay. Well, cool. So the first one, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I think that'll come with step number 3. So the first thing is notice your black and white thinking. Notice where you want to simplify. Notice where you want to say it's cut and it's dry. There's got to be a right. There's got to be a wrong. And I'm stuck on the roundabout. Just notice it, right? Because it's actually just keeping you from moving forward. You're at a standstill. Some would even contend you're going backwards. All right. So just notice, I want to black and white this. So now I have this piece of information. Can I then accept there's a part of me that wants to simplify things? And that's okay. Of course we do. Everything is so complicated. It's fine to want to simplify and cut and dry and black and white. But we get stuck, right? So just accept that that's your initial reaction, right? Remember our first thought. And now we're going to choose a second one, and we're going to say, okay, I got to be decisive. And I'm just going to make a decision, because there is no wrong decision except staying where I'm at. Right? So that's the steps. Notice, accept, decide. So why don't you give us the framework for making a decision, Adam?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 things I like to do. Number 1, I treat it as an experiment, so it makes the decision less daunting. So it's like, all right, I'm going to try doing yoga for a week, or I'm going to try, going for a walk as soon as I get home for a week. And if you approach it, hey, a week or 2 weeks, whatever it might be, as an experiment, not a final decision, it makes it a little easier to kind of dip your toes in the water, so to speak. That's number 1. And number 2 is, for me, when there's a decision, and it's usually like, should I go exercise or should I not? Should I, eat this fruit or go get ice cream? I always try to choose the harder choice, the more uncomfortable choice. Because if the easy choice were the right one, we would have just gone with that right away, right? And there's a part of us that teeters because we probably know which is the right choice for us. So for me, when there's a choice, and one of them is clearly easier, one of them is clearly more uncomfortable, I almost always go with the more uncomfortable choice, because I know ultimately that's going to lead to a more fulfilling and rewarding and satisfying outcome. Because again, if the easy choice were the right one, you would have just done it right away. So there's a part of you that knows, that holds us back a little bit.
I love that. And I love that you also made sure to mention, like, following the harder choice actually leads to a bigger reward in the end. Because kind of talking about what we went through last week, we've got to reward those efforts, right? And we want to know that there's going to be some return on that effort. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people get stuck in the roundabout because choosing the path that's better for us is the harder path. It's cutting over 4 lanes on the roundabout going 60 miles an hour.
Yes. Yes.
I've never done that though.
Right. I mean, and there's trepidation that comes with it, right? That's where the trepidation leads into teetering and indecision, and you're just kind of stalling. But I think that in itself is a tell, right? That in itself is like, all right, maybe it's time to go with the more uncomfortable choice.
Yeah. Yeah. But ultimately, do just get off the teeter-totter, get off the roundabout, make a decision. Even if one day you approach Adam's litmus test there and it's like, this is the easier one, this is the harder one, and you find yourself stuck. If you go with the easy one, great. Celebrate the fact that you at least made a decision, right?
Own it.
Like, I don't want us to, yeah,
like
for sure.
And there are times where it's like, you know what? No, I want ice cream. We're going to get ice cream. I'm not going to regret my decision. Like, or maybe like, it's like, if we're doing this, we're doing this. And,
Yes.
you know, because if I feel like I'm not going to enjoy it, or I'm going to feel, you know, guilty or regretful, it's like, then I know this isn't the right decision for this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this is another turn off the roundabout. You can always change your mind, right? You can always choose one path and then decide halfway. And it's tough, right? You're already going with the current, with the flow. You can turn around and paddle back up.
Yes.
That one's hard too. But again, you can always change your mind. And I think if you keep it in the spirit of experimentation, like you said, man, that gives you a lot of room to change your mind and try different things, right? But it's all about decisions.
Yes.
Make the decision.
Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. That's what I like to say.
Oh, that's a good one. Write that down. Everybody write that down.
Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. Because again, happiness doesn't always feel happy in the moment. What makes us feel fulfilled and accomplished and satisfied doesn't always feel good in the moment, right? There's some discomfort, there's some friction, and that's a good thing, as we've talked about, right? Like, that is a good thing. And the reality is, when you make these decisions enough, eventually the hard choices actually become easy. They really do. Or at the very least, they become much easier.
It does. Yeah. Decision making is a muscle, right? We talk about a lot of muscles, like the tolerance for discomfort, things like that. Decision making is a muscle. You start to get better at it. You start to make those connections faster, right?
Yes.
So the brain doesn't resist as much. The more we do it, the more we kind of lean into that practice. So
yeah.
Good.
And just last thing, I mean, I know I touched on this, but I think it's worth saying, because we've talked about guilt as well, and how I think guilt is a very productive emotion, right? A lot of people we've heard, like, you know, I'm not doing this the way it should be, you know, or some people say it's like, I'm not doing this program the way it should be. It makes me feel guilty. That guilt is a productive emotion. It lets you know that you're not in alignment with your values, what you want. Right. And the real choice in that moment or time isn't to go with the choice that's going to remove the guilt, just like remove the whole thing together. It's lean into it. Like, all right, how can I make this part work for me? You know, right. And I think if there's trepidation, if there's guilt, if there's teetering, again, use that as a compass of sorts.
Yeah. And not as, you know, a crown of shame. Guilt is, like you said, it's productive if we choose to see it that way. And I think that's another place people get hung up. Well, I feel guilty, so I'm feeling shame about this. Don't.
Right.
It just, like you said, is an indicator we're out of alignment with where we want to go. So what can we do to bring ourselves closer to that?
Right. And allow yourself to go closer, but not all the way, all the way. Like, in your mind, you think you have to do it 100% or nothing, black or white thinking, right? Allow yourself the compassion, allow yourself the humanity to scale it down, right? I always say, like, all right, if I want to do this choice, but maybe I'm not feeling it today, what's the least I can do without doing nothing, right? Like, allow yourself that. So I think we gave some really powerful frameworks, you know, talking about decision making. I love it because it's so powerful. Obviously, it impacts every aspect of our life. And we're talking about just, you know, smaller health and fitness decisions, but even just bigger decisions too. It's really good stuff.
Definitely. All right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed what we shared today. If you have any comments, leave them below or email Adam. We'll see you next time.